We are back with the Buffalonian podcast. I'm Joe Cali. As always, I'm joined by none other than Dom Loss. And Dom, it's a pretty quiet week for the Bills since our last episode where we recapped some free agent signings. About a little under a month now, till the NFL draft. We'd be on day 2 right now in a month's time. But we're going to start with the Sabres, unfortunately, today. All right. We know
there's nothing really to talk to you about the Bills. Maybe in the next couple of weeks to do a mock draft.
I think as the draft gets closer, when the ideas are really flowing, I agree. I think a mock draft would do. But
I have 2 questions about the Bills. If you want to hit the Bills real fast.
Okay. Well, right off the top, then we'll go Bills. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Benford? And we already talked a lot about James Cook, but I feel like we haven't talked about Benford. Like Benford now, his market kind of got set by Stingley signing that 3-year, $90 million contract.
Yeah.
J.C. Horn got paid.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Sauce hasn't got paid yet. But what are your thoughts on, like, usually Bean does, I think, a pretty good job of getting out in front of markets.
Not with Benford.
Not with Benford. So why do you think that's the case?
I think they realized they might have had bigger fish to fry on the team. Allen, that's definitely get that out of the way.
Sure.
I don't know if they think Benford's value is up there with those guys. And you know what I'm saying? I think they're kind of taking the gamble of, he'll be happy with whatever we give him. We'll give him a little bump, but not that much. So the market was set for people who are above his pay grade, I think, more than anything. I think that's what happened.
I think it's interesting because I think from the analytics and like the numbers perspective, like he's up there with those guys, right? Yards per coverage snap and target.
Oh, yeah.
I do wonder if they don't view him quite as that tier 1 corner. Like,
they might not.
I think they view him as number 1. Don't get me wrong, but like I think Bean had a quote of like, "Yeah, we've had dialogue with those guys, and that's about it." Mm-hmm. So I assume like they didn't get very far in negotiations. That was
maybe not. Maybe he's a little too rich for the Bills' blood. And that would be unfortunate. But
he does a lot of things well, though. Like
he does.
He has good size. He tackles really well. I mean, he's one of the better tackling corners, and obviously the Bills have always valued that. So
his presence was also missed in the AFC Championship.
But why was he not there?
Injury, right. And I think that might be kind of an indicator of why he hasn't signed a deal yet.
So I think it's a little bit of injury. I think it's a little bit of I don't know in the building they view him as a pure shutdown corner. Like I think they view him again as a number 1 corner, and I think they'd be willing to pay that price. But I don't think they view him in the Stingley, Sauce Gardner. I mean, J.C. Horn's kind of just a weird like. The Carolina just has so much money. So,
yeah. They're rolling in cap.
I guess it's just interesting to see that he's kind of the one without a dancing partner, like him and Cook. I'm not surprised, but I'm not surprised at all by Cook. I'm a little bit surprised by Benford, but maybe we shouldn't be because I think Shakir and Bernard kind of took market value contracts. Same thing of Gregory Stowe. Like I think all those guys kind of took market value. Like I just wonder if the Bills don't view him in that tier 1 market because of the injuries and because of maybe they don't view him as a strict shutdown man core. Maybe it's a little bit, they view him more as like, hey, he's really good in our system. This is where he's going to succeed the most. And I would assume Benford's camp's like, look at our numbers. Like our numbers are pretty close to those top guys. Like we should be in that type of money. But I don't think the Bills have the room to be paying a cornerback nearly $30 million. Like I just don't.
No.
Listen, the Bills, though, what's interesting, though, is like they paid Trey White early. So they had no problem paying Trey White for 70 at the time, which was a lot. They got ahead of, I think it was Marlon Humphrey, Jalen Rand, like right around those extensions.
Yeah, they got ahead of that wave of the market.
But they didn't get ahead of this one. I think that's telling.
Well, also, look at the way Tre'Davious White ended his tenure in Buffalo, right? And I know it's similar to the Von Miller conversation of you can't foresee the injuries, right? The ACL pop, the Achilles pop, just 2 unfortunate accidents back to back. But is this kind of a are you know what I'm saying? Are you cautious now?
Milano,
something
like they've gotten
burned by injury quite a bit. Is that the worry? And look at him already getting injured. Like I think that could be it.
I think a better one is Milano because Trey, those are freak injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Vaughn had the ACL and like an ankle injury earlier, but that was that was freaking the knee. I would say Milano was a guy that missed. Hey, Milano missed a lot of games before he started, like with the hamstring in 2020. Like he had some time missed.
Yeah.
So it's not I mean, again, he also kind of had like a couple freak injuries, but like he did have that label of being a little injury prone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe you're right on that. Maybe they feel a little bit burned of, again, the best availability is
the best ability is availability.
I knew I was going to flip it. But yeah, I think that may be the case because it's like, okay, if we pay you $30 million and you still miss 3 to 4 games a year, like that's 25% of the year that we're down our number one corner, and now we're playing a lower tier corners because we had to pay you some. So I shouldn't say talking it out. I'm not super surprised by it, but it is still, especially coming out the season he had, especially also now losing Rasul Douglas, trading away Kyrie. I'm like, I know they brought back Dane Jackson, but that's really nobody. But
yeah, Dane Jackson's just a guy who knows the system that sets your floor.
It's really Benford's room as being the top outside corner. So I don't know.
It's definitely intriguing. Then the other name you mentioned, James Cook. I mean,
we don't need to discuss him. I mean, I think
I'm in the mindset of he's out of here after next season.
His case is very obvious. So he wants top of the end market. I don't think the Bills believe in that kind of stuff. So.
No, because you'd be getting paid now with Saquon's extension. You'd be getting paid more than every other running back except Saquon and Christian McCaffrey, and that's like, not quite. Derrick Henry's still out there. Like Jonathan Taylor.
Derrick Henry's a weird one because he was like
he's older.
He was perceived washed.
Right. But those guys are just as, if not more valuable to their teams.
Yeah.
And, you tied a franchise record last season. That's great. That's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to spit on that. But you're jumping a lot of running backs if you're asking for that kind of money that I think are better. So.
And my last thing to talk about the Bills is that there was a lot of talk on X today.
Oh, boy.
About regression.
The Twitter wars?
Well, I think there was some good talk about regression for the Bills in 24. I was going to say 25, but definitely 24.
To expect it? Or
well, like of the perspective of the Bills had a high turnover, had very, very good turnover differential, which is kind of not the most stable statistic. Like that doesn't really, and yes, Josh, I think did a better job taking care of the football, but I think this is the case. I don't think anyone lost a fumble outside of Josh this year. If I'm not mistaken, maybe like one other person. I'm blanking. But,
no, I don't. I think it was just Josh.
So again, that's pretty rare to go through that entire season. I mean, we had plenty of people. Ray Davis fumbled. I mean, they got fumbles. They were able to recover their fumbles, which is probably unrealistic to assume that they're going to continue to do that.
There's a lot of luck involved in that.
A lot of luck, right? And so I think that's part of it. And also, with the turnovers, you get better field position, right? So does that impact? And also, it's just true. I mean, it is just a fact. The offense last year was on historic levels of efficiency.
Yeah.
So can you really? I know it's a Josh Allen offense.
Can you replicate though?
That's what I'm saying. Is it possible for a little dip? And even so, if you want to be positive and be like, you know what, we like Josh Palmer. Some of these young guys, they played a lot of young guys last year. They're going to take a step, right? If we have Milano and Bernard healthy, right, and then also the D line, we think different is better, right? I'm indifferent because we had to see, but is different better or worse? We don't know. So you want to say, okay, the D line has a bit better pressure. I think it's fair to say that some of their statistics will regress. So there was a big because some people were really complaining about, oh, I can't believe anyone would suggest that they're going to have a regression on offense or anything. It's like, even if you like the ads, even if you like the team over, still keeping Joe Brady and all that, I think it's fair to say that some of their stuff. Again, you don't want to say lucky because that sounds, but it's true. There's some luck involved with the turnovers and the field position, and even if your side point is, hey, we're gonna have better special teams this year, right? Because we were 28th in special teams, better special teams, maybe better D line play, more pressure could equal more turnovers. That will cancel out the offense, maybe taking a small step back because of just the mean regression of you're just not gonna have a season where you have 8 turnovers. Right, so I think two things can be true at once.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. It's going to be difficult. Do I think it's out of the question? No, because
I would bet on regression.
I'd bet on yes, but not falling way out in the division or anything like that.
Sure,
yeah.
No, I'm just saying I would bet on some offense. They were historic last year. They didn't turn the football over.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Some of that is just a little unsustainable, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. As much as I want it to happen again,
Sure. I think
it's
we're all setting up for that.
Yeah, it's not 100% likely. I'd say you still have a chance to be very efficient, but to match the exact levels of efficiency last season, you're going to need a lot of luck again in your favor, and the pendulum swings back and forth. You don't know where you're going to end up on the lucky wheel. So it's gonna definitely be interesting to watch. But it'll be nice to see a championship caliber franchise back on the field again soon-ish. Got a while still, but the vibes are getting higher heading into the draft. The calendar resets, if you will. But now to a more disappointing product, if you're okay with that. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Sabres.
You didn't say anything incorrect there. So.
No. This is a funny story. I have to say it. So last week, I hosted a quick show, and I bashed the Sabres. Like, went in on them. I was ripping on them.
On Saturday?
No. A nightcap last week.
Oh, okay.
So it was like 7 to 8. I was just ripping them pretty much. And it was before the game, before they scored on themselves.
Oh, the Utah game.
So that is part of the story. And then I'm walking out, and I'm like, did I go too hard? Was I too harsh? Was I too harsh on this team? And then they score on themselves. And I'm like, I walk in the next morning, I was like, man, am I glad that happened on a day where the college basketball took that schedule and changed everything. So I didn't have to go that night. I had a day to process it. So because a raw reaction to that happening, I might have lost the job. Like, in all seriousness, it's so pitiful. And it's just, to me, everyone's like, oh, like a freak accident, like blah blah blah. Tage didn't mean for it to happen. Okay, he didn't mean, of course he didn't mean to score on his own net. Like, let's not just dodge that it happened. Because in the NHL, yes, it does happen, but
it's very rare.
It's very rare. Like,
I
haven't watched it happen like that before.
I honestly don't know if I've ever seen. Obviously, I've seen replays of situations like that. I don't think I've ever been watching a game live and watching that actually happen.
Rob Ray sounded like he was about to jump head first out of the broadcast booth. You had a penalty called. You had a delayed penalty. You could have absolutely just tossed it to one of them. You have a man up, 2 men up now.
This is not a defensive Tage.
Yeah.
My only thing with this, so you're saying is, I think there's an argument to be had for both sides. From the perspective, not scoring yourself, obviously not.
Yeah.
But the perspective of you having the delayed penalty, you have a 6-on-5 with guaranteed possession. Right? You have possession of the puck. Right?
Because they're not going to want to touch it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they want to touch it, but you have possession. Versus, it's now a 6-on-4, and you have a 50-50 face-off to see if you get possession. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe you could say, even if you lose the face-off, you have more players, so you could have
You're getting the puck back. They're just going to burn a little bit of time.
Well, you would think you would get the puck back. You know what I'm saying? So I can understand that you have possession of the puck, but at the same time, 6-on-4, trust your face-off man to win. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, oh my God. I just can't. When I watch that happen,
it's no longer Billsy, it's just Sabres, you know?
Yes. You're already going into year 14. I have a bad tickle in my throat. Hang on 1 second.
The hate of the Sabres are just like making your throat just...
Yes. You already are going into year 14 of a playoff drought. Year 14. Then you start putting together some solid performances, actually. The win against Vegas, that was actually a good game. You took out of the trenches in overtime. Then you play against the other worst team in the NHL, and you pull that one out in overtime, Boston. Then you get here, and it's like, okay, can you string another win together?
Owner in the building.
Yes, owner in the building. Can you string another one together? Nope, we're actually going to take it away from ourselves. And it's just like the defense of, it happens sometimes. That's where you lose me.
Why is it happening?
Why are we making excuses? Are you Don Granato?
Well, I think it's also the fact of, they lose that game in Utah, they lose the game in Minnesota, and then they're playing legitimately the number 1 team in the NHL.
It's just so utterly frustrating. It just the way the fan base tries to make excuses. Why are we trying to make excuses for a team that's 14 years out of a playoff spot? Why are the excuses being made is my question. Year 5 of an NFL general manager position where you should be on your ass on the curb right now, and nothing. You still have your job next season.
Supposedly, yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, the owner's in the building, as we said, for the entire trip. So you got to see that ugly game in Utah, the ugly game in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Where you're just down 3-0 in the third. It's like, all right, this is a wrap on this game. And then, they win. Like, of course, they find a way to win at Winnipeg, who is the number 1 team in the NHL. Mostly off James Reimer, and Reimer McLeod scored 4 points. I have 2 thoughts about kind of one thought is this. I find it very funny that when the Savoy and McLeod trade happened, there was a reporter that was like, this has Martin Erat for Philip Forsberg trade written all over it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, Martin Erat was a really good player for Nashville. He was also in his 30s when he got traded to Washington and didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Okay, Ryan McLeod was 25. Already not a great comparison. Right? And then Philip Forsberg, yes. Philip Forsberg got traded from Washington to Nashville, ends up being a top-line winger, 30-goal scorer, was one of the better players on that Nashville team that went to the Cup final against Pittsburgh in 2017. Sure. Terrible, lopsided trade, awful trade for Washington.
Right.
Comparing, even when you were comparing Savoy and McLeod to that trade in the beginning, again, that was a bad comparison because it's trading for McLeod, who is in prime 25-year-old centerman, right, who at worst is a third-line center, comparing him to Martin Erat, who was a winger who was past his prime. Already really bad example.
Mm-hmm.
And then Savoy is not nearly the prospect of Ford. So then a big thing happened on X again. I'm just all over X.
Okay. Yeah, you're all over. Yeah, you're in the
because
metaverse.
Ryan McLeod against Winnipeg, has the great pass to Alex Tuch for the shorthanded goal in the third period, and also had the hook shot backhander into the empty net, right, for his 17th goal of the season, and hit a 4-point night. Well, everyone was talking about how McLeod has the same number of points as Savoy does in the AHL. And everyone just started razzing on the guy that did the year thing because it was like, hey, like this guy McLeod is actually a legit NHLer and is going to be a legit part of the Sabres' future. You compared him stupidly to this trade. He's like, oh, like, give it a couple years. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. It doesn't look like I'm right now, but give me a couple years. It's like, dude, no, because your example was bad to begin with. It looks bad. Now, you could say, hey, like if Savoy becomes something, it's still, a win for the Oilers over the Sabres. Sure. But it looks terrible. So, like, just no leg to stand on. So that was annoying. That was one thought. Second thought is this. What do the Sabres do with their first-round pick? It's been kind of going around because the Sabres are going to be drafting very high in the first round.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they suck.
Yep. They have a chance in the lottery for the first overall.
Sure.
They're trading it for another Beck Mellon sign.
And what is your opinion of what they should do with their first-round pick?
Use it, trade it, or... Yeah, I mean, those are the two. Be like the Minnesota Vikings and just not pick it. Yeah.
I still can't believe that happened.
I can't either. It's just kind of crazy. But I don't know. I'm kind of in the... you didn't use your first pick last year.
What do you mean trade it?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. You technically did use it.
I mean, they drafted, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I don't know where I'm at with that. Because I for one, if you can trade it for NHL-ready talent, right, that actually can come in and make a difference, I'm all for it.
I'm assuming that would be yes.
But if you're just going to burn it on a prospect, you already had
I doubt they do that.
You already had a number one prospect pool in the NHL.
So you're saying you would trade it?
I'd probably trade it for an NHL-ready player that's on the younger side and that can come in and actually do the job instead of waiting for him to develop in Rochester, your pick, whoever it may be.
I would not trade it.
No? You'd pick?
2 reasons why. Number one reason, I think this is a really good high-end forward class. And as much as like the Sabres have drafted well, they don't have like they could use a big time forward, like a legit top line forward product. They have a lot of like middle six guys. That's one. So I think the type of class is that, and then 2, I would not permit Kevin Adams to trade because I don't want a guy who's a GM who's literally should already be in his last year, but Lily is going to be in his last season, just trading away a top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just think that's That's not what good organizations do.
Right.
I
get
would
it.
say I would be okay with them moving already drafted NHL players like Hellenius or Rozan or any of that, or Osland. Like I would be okay with them trading current prospects to try and get, like the Matt Savoy and Ryan McLeod trade, for example. I don't know if I would want them to trade a pick that could be a really good forward prospect, right? Because again, they probably won't be ready for the season.
Yeah.
They might be ready in a year or two, but I think that that type of prospect they could get in the top 5 would be worth the wait. So, I don't know, that's my kind of opinion on that. But
I like it. I get it.
I don't mind yours either. I think both sides are fair.
Yeah, I think right now this team is way past just spiraling out of control. It's out of control. You don't know what you're getting with them, whether it be a good performance or bad, and it's just getting really old. Like this team, I don't want to start any shit, believe it or not, but like you're a couple years out. If this continues, you're a couple years out from being put on the market, I think.
That'll never happen.
Like if you hit 20 years of a playoff drought, if you surpass the Bills,
it won't happen for a while.
You don't think so?
No.
There's no one that wants to move into like Texas or something like that?
No, because they're waiting for the expansion fees. He wouldn't. They are not in danger of getting moved until they expand. After they expand, maybe I'd hear an argument, but
yeah,
I don't think they're in danger of that. But looking at their schedule, they play Ottawa tonight. Dylan Cousins. I have a Dylan Cousins take after this. But
okay.
They then host Pittsburgh on Thursday, and then they're in Philadelphia and Washington on Saturday and Sunday, and then a week from now they're in Ottawa. So, a lot of games. Was it five in a week?
Yeah,
it's a lot.
They play majority of the week. Yeah.
But my Dylan Cousins take is this, simply put.
Okay.
And my dad's gonna hate this, but what I would do is I would assume he comes out like for the opening day lineup. I would put my 4th line out there and challenge him to a fight. I'm not even like
put him back in the bubble.
I know you laugh about that. I'm not even kidding you. I would. Greenman got banged up, so that's probably a bad example. But like Malinstein or someone, I would just challenge him right after the face-off.
Just drop the gloves.
Yeah.
Fight.
Drop it and let it go.
I'm being 1,000% serious. I would challenge him to a fight right away.
Yeah. I mean that's television.
Because you gotta show television. There's no friends. It's a rivalry. Like,
yeah.
Like they need to win tonight.
Yeah. They
need to make a statement. So yeah. I would 100% challenge him to a fight. But with that being said, that's kind of our Sabres talk.
Yeah, as it's starting to snow outside. Just caught that out of the corner
great.
of my eye. Yeah.
Bandits, interesting week.
Drop and win.
Yeah, it was one of those.
It's a back-to-back, though, too. Like, that's just a weird...
Yeah, I don't think you could take much from it, other than, they had a nice start against Vegas, and they played... I'll say this about the Bandits. And maybe this is
I know exactly where you're going.
This is going to sound negative, but I think it's just kind of true. I feel like they coast a lot in these games.
They let it get close.
Like, they were up like 10-1 or something like against Vegas.
Substantially.
And then all of a sudden, it's like kind of like a 4-3 game. It was like, I went to the game with my dad in Philadelphia, and they were up the whole time. And all of a sudden, it's like a 2-goal game in the 4th quarter. It's like, what the? Like, it's like one goal happens, and then you're like, okay, you're just like eating some Sour Patch Kids, take a handful, and next thing you know, another goal happens. Like, oh, wow.
They just roll. They let it snowball.
So it's a little weird.
Become a game. Yeah,
I don't know if it's players or coaches, or they're, quite frankly, a really good thing might be maybe they just bored. Maybe they're just like, this is the regular season. Like, they now have clinched a home playoff game, which is good, but like, I don't know. I'm getting a little bit of a vibe that they could be a little bit bored and just kind of waiting for the playoffs, which may be dangerous because then you have to really turn it on for the postseason, which, they have been the last 2 years, so I'm not super concerned about it.
Yeah, they were 500 last season, but yeah,
it's something to look at. It's something to look for sure.
Yeah, the back-to-back, I think, had a story there, but like you said, in the loss against Albany, the second game, who they beat in the finals last year to win the title for the second year in a row.
They've lost 2 games by 1 goal, so they got blown out 1 game.
They're not spiraling by any means, and you're absolutely right. They do like to they let it get close in the second and third quarter, and then they either outduel them in the final or they just kind of lose by a goal. So it's definitely interesting to look at. I don't know if it's Matt Vince has some high and low performances too, but I mean, they seem to have a winning formula. They are top of the NLL still. So until proven otherwise, I guess we kind of have to just believe in the sauce, if you will.
Believe in the cause.
Yeah. So, but they're a fun team to watch at least.
I mean, again, more than one team can say. But two more things to talk about.
Okay.
I got one. Bison start up.
Opening day coming up.
Opening day against Rochester, 2:05 on Friday.
Did you see what they're doing with the tickets? If it's the guarantee of 50 degrees or lower, and you get like free Bison's tickets if you come.
Seriously?
Yeah, because they're like guaranteeing 50 degrees and above temperatures, and if it's not, they're going to give you free Bison's tickets.
That's
a pretty cool promo. I feel like people would just go because the odds of it being below are actually...
Well, the current weather is this, 47. Current weather is, it's supposed to be on Friday, 36 and raining.
Mm. Do they get you with the feels like temperature, though? Like, if it is like 50-something...
If it's wind chill? That's a good question.
If it's 53, but feels like 49, is that the technicality?
Oh, maybe you got to challenge that. You got to go up to the press box and be like, hey, like, we got a conversation. But
you might have to. You might have to.
Hopefully a little bit better than last season. Last season was a pretty brutal season. The Jays, obviously the parent club of the Bisons, again, they just don't have a really good farm system, so it's not like there's a lot of great players, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or something to look like a player to look for, really. But we'll get into that obviously as in the next month or so. But hopefully they get off to a better start. And then I thought you were going to talk about how on Thursdays now they're going to have their their retro jerseys.
Yeah,
like
it is a reverse
Buster.
retro.
Okay, I thought it was reverse, but I was
it's a reverse retro because they have the retro.
Yeah,
and then that's a different one.
It looked cool, so I was like, oh, okay.
Well, that's the logo from when we were kids in the 2000s. The green.
Can I say something? Maybe controversial. I feel like the Bisons do a really good job with their fan entertainment. Like their promotions and stuff. Like,
hell yeah, they do.
I think part of that is kind of
probably the best.
But honestly, God, they kind of have to do that because they have so many games, right? And it's like some of the times they're like, oh, it's Tuesday night. Like,
yeah, you got to get people in the seats. At least some.
I think they do a really good job, and they do really cool bobbleheads, obviously, and I don't know, they do a good job. But
even the Star Wars night, that script is from Lucasfilm, like from Disney.
Yeah, they do a good Marvel's Avengers. Like they do a good job, and they have a lot.
I think they switched that. I heard Pat Malacaro talking about it.
Oh, really?
I think it's going to be like Harry Potter night or something like
cool.
that now. So appealing to a different crowd now.
Well, I like it.
Yeah, switching it up.
No, yeah. I like it. Yeah, that is cool. So
innovation that excites.
Then they also have, obviously the retro jerseys, but they also do a good job of like getting cool hats, and they don't wear the same uniforms. Like they changed up.
Yeah, the combinations. Yeah,
the Bandits uniforms were cool last year. So that's
the
cool.
Sabres ones always look all right too.
Yeah. No, they do it. They do a really good job, and
yeah.
So going to my last thing.
Okay.
I didn't tell Joe I was doing this.
Okay.
I told Joe this could happen, but I have two kind of questions. We had the would you rather. This is like one would you rather and one what if. All right. I'll explain both of them after I say what they are. But we'll start with the what if. What is a bigger what if?
Okay.
What if Von Miller never tore his ACL in Detroit?
That's a big one. Okay.
What if Jay McKee, the Sabres defenseman, never had a staph infection before Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Hurricanes?
That's huge.
So that context, Von Miller had 8 sacks in like 11 games in 2022, and then tore his ACL against Detroit.
Yeah, that
season went down the complete drain. Some of that's the DeMar stuff, but that they got killed by the Bengals, right? And then he has a year of he had to be on the pub to begin the season.
The knee brace,
never had a sack.
Stuff. Yeah.
Bad year. And then he has the year from Hack 2 last season where he's suspended for 4 games for domestic violence.
Yeah.
He has kind of an all-right season, but now he's cut. Or Jay McKee, who was a top 4 defenseman on the Sabres, really good defenseman. The Sabres, obviously people in Buffalo would know this, had a really good team.
Right.
And they had a bunch of injuries in the back end. It's like basically like having an entire offensive line get injured and having to have all backups. Like they had a bunch of AHL players in there, and McKee was one of the last couple starters left, and he has a staph infection right before Game 7.
Could he have been the answer to Kevin Adams and the Hurricanes?
And they lose that game in Carolina, and then Carolina goes and beats Edmonton in 7 games to win the Stanley Cup. So I'll give it to Joe. I won't answer. What is a bigger what if?
Okay.
The Von Miller ACL tear or what obviously everyone knows. What if Von Miller never tore his ACL in 2022, and what if Jake McKee never got a staph infection? Which is the bigger one?
I gotta say, the McKee staph infection, because that's a Stanley Cup on the line.
I would agree. I think
that's different.
Like the DeMar stuff still happens.
Yes, and I think it derails a lot of the mentality, your psyche, team psyche for the rest of the season.
But would the Bills still not have a Super Bowl because they would have hypothetically had a healthy Von Miller without any ACL in 23 and 24?
I don't think so. I think
okay. So you don't think okay.
If you watch that Bengals playoff loss, I think they lose that game.
Okay, but 23. If you would have had a healthy Von Miller going into 23, do you think the results would have been different?
Maybe, but your offense was still Ken Dorsey led and not great.
Sure. So maybe you know what? A good what for that? Maybe Ken Dorsey would have still been the offensive coordinator
because the defense would probably still be bailing them out.
Yeah, they probably would have won a couple more games. They wouldn't be 6-6.
Yep,
that's a good point.
I think
maybe it's more of a negative.
I don't think Von Miller being healthy. I think it changes more about his history with the team right now.
Sure,
I think he'd be getting re-signed.
No, he'd be looked at more favorably from fans as well.
Yeah. I think it would be more personal for him, not team success.
Okay, that's a good point.
McKee definitely is.
You would think
you have the Stanley Cup on the line. Like, that's different.
Yeah, you think you'd have a better chance. You would win the Game 7, hopefully, with a healthy Jim McKee.
Yeah.
And then
you'd shut down Kevin Adams and the Hurricanes.
All right, I like that.
I think. That's at least where my head's at. I think Von Miller, again, more personal for him, not team success, but McKee is definitely team success. Because that was just bad luck. Like, talk about bad injury luck. That was just everything that could go wrong possibly went wrong for them. But maybe it is. Maybe, Kevin Adams, you got to think about this. Is it personal? Is he just wanting to pound Buffalo into the ground? Is that what wants to happen? Because he's doing a damn good job. That's all I got to say.
All right. My
friends in Carolina have to love it. But go ahead.
The Would You Rather have March Madness edition.
Okay.
Would you rather play at a small school and make the Sweet 16 and be like, not have a pro career? Like, you're not going to go pro, but you had like this run.
You're going in the history books.
Yeah, but you're like Florida Gulf Coast. Like, none of those guys went pro, but they were like, everyone knows them as Dunk City and all that.
Yeah.
Or would you rather be like a really highly touted prospect, Duke, really highly touted prospect, and lose, like get upset, and then go on to have a successful pro career? Example would be like Jason Tatum from Duke. They were the 2 seed. They got upset by South Carolina in the round of 32, and now he's gone on to have a very successful pro career, obviously, of being one of the great players of the day. So, which one would you rather be? Would you rather be? I think it's interesting.
I want to go in the history books on a Cinderella run.
I would too.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like St. Peter's, like I would have loved to be on that team. It
Doug?
just subverting expectations the entire way. I don't want to be on like Duke and then you lose, and guess what? Yeah, you might have a successful pro career, but the way stats are now and the way people like talk in the offseason, that's bound to be brought up for a good chunk of your career that you just got wiped out of the tournament. like at a basketball school, you got wiped out. I want to be the Cinderella. Even if the pro career is sacrificed, you have a chance to go on and be an analyst or anything. You know what I'm saying? Like
that would carry you.
From that could carry you into a successful whatever you choose to do. Where the pro career, yeah, but at what cost? Like that's kind of where I'm at. Because college basketball for me, I don't know how you feel about this. So watching even just the chaotic nature of it, right? The ball flying everywhere, people going down. You don't see that very much in the NBA. And I know they're more polished, right? And the rules are different. But there's just the madness of March, right? Like that's just what it is. There's just something about it that's more memorable to me than a pro. I mean, minus a few outstanding. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, of course, is going to be Kobe, like those guys. Like those are memorable pro careers, but a lot of those pro guys fall through the cracks unless you're the greatest of the great. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So that's kind of where
I'm
like
a local hero too. Like
yeah. Like you could be at that school and be as
Josh Allen says, you could get immortalized.
Yes. So exactly, a smaller city. You come play in Buffalo, you're immortalized. You're at a smaller school. And if you're at a small school and doing that, you're arguably a centerpiece of that team.
No, I agree.
Whereas you're just a piece in the big school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like no one ever says Jason Tatum, like Duke legend.
No.
He says he went to Duke. Like no one
Exactly.
ever put him to Duke. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of interesting March Madness debates. Obviously, March Madness, I think, has been pretty good so far. I mean, it normally has. And a lot of really good teams left. So I think the second weekend, is this year, I should say, not season, but this year, is going to be better than the first weekend.
Agreed.
Just because I think we have a lot. I think this is an interesting conversation. I guess we have a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of people were complaining that there's only the 16 teams left are only in the 4 Power Fours, right? There's no mid-major that made it and whatever. And I say that it's like, and everyone wants to bring up, oh, it's NIL, it's the transfer portal, it's all that. And I say, I'm not saying those don't have an effect. I also think that like we're overanalyzing 1 year. Like, I think everyone, like you when you normally fill out a bracket, and you have all 4 number 1 seeds make the Final Four, and you tell someone, what does the person tell you? It's like, oh, how original.
Yeah, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you really, that never happens.
Mm-hmm.
This year, if you did that, it'd be like, oh, you know what? That probably is true because those 4 teams are really good this year.
Yeah.
Like, I think this year's a weird season where I think the top teams are so much better than the middle pack.
The only one you really saw get smacked around was Clemson of the higher seeds.
They got smacked. They somehow rallied to make that look better. But yeah.
Oh, they were down in it.
My thing is like it's also like some of it's also just like seeding. Like everyone's like, oh, they only have the 4 Power Fours. It's like, okay, so you're disregarding that the Mountain West had Mexico, who were the 10 seed, go toe to toe with Michigan State, who was a 2 seed.
Yeah,
you're disregarding that they had Colorado State, who was a 12 seed, lose legitimately at the buzzer to the 4 seed. So if that shot doesn't go in, there's 5 conferences. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're forgetting that the Pac-12 no longer exists, right? Because Arizona's in the Sweet 16. Like, if the Pac-12 was still alive, that would be another conference. The Big East, like St. John's got upset. Like, we all love upsets. St. John's is a 2 seed, got upset by the 10 seed Arkansas.
Yep.
And then also, like, the Big East, like Creighton and UConn were both in the 8-9 that had to play 1 seeds and fought both those guys. That was a competitive game for those, Creighton and UConn against Florida and Auburn, but they both lost. It's like no one's surprised by that. And then also it's like, the West Coast Conference, Gonzaga's made 9 straight Sweet 16s. They drew Houston in the second round. Like, I don't think anyone was like, oh man, like they could win. They made that a heck of a game. Also, the same thing with Houston. Like, Houston used to be in the American. Right, so maybe you want to blame conference realignment more because Houston used to be in the American, which was a mid-major, and now they're not, and now they're still making Sweet 16s in the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
I'm not saying NIL and conference realignment and transfer portal have stuff to do with it. I also think this is just a strange season.
I would agree. I do think it is a strange season. Also, I mentioned the Clemson McNeese matchup. It's actually McNeese, if you know that.
Really?
Yeah, I did not know that. And then at work, we were told pronunciation McNeese for our sports updates. I was like, interesting. I was like, it's not MAC.
Yeah,
but
mac and cheese.
Yeah, they are 1-3. They improved to 1-3 all time. McNeese in the March Madness tournament. So they might be who I look for in the next few years. Like, I picked them to win that first game. Funnily enough, like I don't know how I did.
You are doing very well in the pool.
Yes, in every poll, I kind of pick the same bracket. I do that just so I don't get confused.
That's true.
While watching,
you don't want to be like rooting. I don't
want to be rooting against myself.
You know what's like? It's like when you have
fantasy.
too many when you have too many fantasy teams. And it's like, my team has CeeDee Lamb. I also am playing CeeDee Lamb in another league against me, so now I hope he gets like 15 points.
Or you're sitting there like, yes, CD, and then you're like, oh wait, no, not in this league where I actually need him. Like, that's in my burner league or whatever, But I kind of try and keep them all relatively similar. That's where I'm at.
I always say this though. I'd rather see the upset than my bracket be right.
A Cinderella run does
rather I'm trying to think of an example. I don't have one for this year, but like in years past, like St. Peter's wrecked my bracket. I still want them to keep winning. Like it's just fun.
Yeah. I have Michigan winning, which I think was a little outlandish, but I think they can get it done.
Hey.
You never know. It's the badness of March.
That's true.
Is it like the Super Bowl? Can we like not say that? Is there a trademark on?
That's cool.
That's my question. I always teeter around it with that, and then I just say the NCAA men's basketball tournament.
They make a lot of money off that, man.
They do. but it's good product every year.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there weren't a lot of upsets, it was still good basketball. Clemson's, like you said, Clemson was looking bad. Like that was like a dead man walking, and they kind of made that interesting.
It's a game of runs.
Yeah.
In March.
Yeah. So I forget what team was it. Oh, the Bulldogs versus the Bulldogs. That game was just like, what is
Georgia
going on?
versus Gonzaga?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that was crazy. But this, I'm excited for this weekend. That'll be fun to keep back up with the brackets and everything like that. But anything else you want to toss in here before we wrap it up?
No.
Next week, by the way, I do want to make mention of this. We'll pass the 3-year mark of the pod. So,
well, some drafts, some more. If you like the what ifs and the would you rather's, I think I could cook up some more.
And why don't we do a mock draft next week?
Sure,
might as well. And then we could do a fun draft, even like what we were talking about a couple weeks ago. The sports months. We don't have to do that one per se, but
we'll be creative.
We'll be creative.
We won't pick all 1 seeds.
No, we won't pick all 1 seeds or use Stephen A. Smith's bracket picks. Did you see you could do that on the ESPN app?
No.
Yeah, so you could like use their analytics, like we talked about last week, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd be a sellout if you win, because like, how can you say you actually won? You can't. Or you could use their commentators' picks.
Oh.
Stephen A. Smith at the end of the first weekend was like 50-50. And I was like, dude. And I said to pick against Stephen A. Smith, and then I realized I was like, oh, you'd still be 50-50 because he got all of them half right, half wrong.
Yeah, I almost feel like, I'll make something controversial. I almost feel like it's kind of fun to have a bracket and then also be in a situation where like you have a pool where it's like once they get to the Sweet 16, like if you have a group of like 16 guys, you do like a draft, like you do a lottery and then you do a draft of like the 16 teams and like that's your team that you root for.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I like survivor pools too. That's similar to what you just said, but you can pick a team, but you can't pick it again. Like from this point on. For like every game, you pick a winner.
Well, sure.
But you can't pick that team again in the next round. You have to pick again. You know what I'm saying? So you pick the upsets and stuff like that and try and move through.
Well, it'd be. So would it be like if you picked Houston, you wouldn't be able to pick
you can't pick all of the conferences or anything like that because you'd run out of teams. Your goal is not to run out of teams. You'd pick like Houston per se, right?
So like what I'm saying is you get 1 team per round. So like I would be like, if I'm doing this right, tell me if I'm wrong, would be like I would pick whatever I think is the weakest 1 seed, whatever. I'd say Auburn, so like Patrick Bad. I pick Auburn because I think there's no way they're going to lose 16 versus 1.
Exactly.
So then round 2, I could pick any of the remaining 32 teams except Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you just can't, and you have to get it right though. They have to win.
Oh, sure. Okay.
If you lose, you're out.
No, I understand that.
So it's like picking the NFL team by week.
Okay.
You'd have some remaining, but
no, sure, now I understand. But you would hypothetically, you would have, if you go perfect 6 rounds, right? Yeah, so 6, you perfectly want to go 6 for 6. All right, yeah.
Yeah. So I like those too, because that makes it a little interesting.
No, that is actually interesting, because then you could potentially not, yeah. I just think that the bracket sometimes is a little frustrating, so if you fill it out beforehand, and like the bracket just doesn't go well the first weekend, you're kind of just like, all right.
Yeah, gives you a little action.
Yeah, it gives you
no matter what, and you kind of know how it's going.
That's why I like the 16 teams one, is because it's like, all right, everyone's still kind of, you get like a rebought in to like the team, and then it also makes it competitive because like I want to draft Duke. I want to get the first pick so I get Duke on my team. Like I don't want to get stuck with whoever. What? I don't want to get stuck with Arkansas, who's the 10th seed in the tournament.
Yeah, it'll be nice in the future. We had that run of at least a couple of the big four teams around here. No, it's coming back here. Yes, next year. But I'm saying even the big 4 teams around here, the UBs, NU, Canisius, you had a couple of those teams involved.
Hopefully they're better. I mean, as a Canisius alum, not great club.
But you got even UB. You got to just hope the women's team's good at UB, not the men's team. So you got to hope for a flip around because it'd be cool to have a local.
Both. How about both?
Oh yeah, and Niagara and Bonaventure for that matter. But you got to. It'd be nice to have a local rooting interest at least, like we used to. Because in high school, UB actually made a run. Like we went through.
It's like people still root for Nate Oates.
Yes,
because he's no longer the UB coach, but he's now
after he left that program. Just fucking sorry for my language. Took a dump pretty much. But what are you gonna do? But that's gonna do it for this edition of the Buffalonian podcast. Like I said, we'll be back next week for a 3-year special. Been a wild ride, but we'll get to that next week. Dom, how do we always end these, buddy?
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills.